ahead and go live on Instagram now. And then once I'm live, you guys can hop into the Instagram live. All right, I am live on Instagram. Hello, everyone. Thank you guys so much for being here today on this Saturday. We have a special guest with us today, so I am so excited. Oh, there he is. Okay. I'm going to,
I just requested to
okay. Okay, Stephen, I'm waiting for you. I'm looking for you. Hi
Okay.
guys, welcome in. Oh, I have you, Billy, sideways.
let me change up.
Hello, hello. We are waiting on Dr. Stephen Boateng for him to join our live here, and we'll go ahead and get started. We're so excited to. Okay, I hear echo. Let me make sure I turn that
That was
down.
me.
That was on
That
my
was
phone.
you? All right, and then Stephen, there you are. I think we're set. Okay, we got everybody on. That wasn't too hard, was it?
No, that was way better now than I thought it was gonna be.
All right, Stephen, I'll let you start us off here.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining our conversation today. I am super pumped because this has been in the works for quite a little bit. Just to share with you guys our special guest, and I'll save some teasers for later. But again, for those of you that are new on our platform, I am Steven, one of the team leads here at Sickle 101. I have Cass on the call today, and our special guest today is nobody than our own all-star sickle cell warrior, Billy Garrett Jr. I see Billy smiling. So we're just excited to have Billy on our conversation today. And truly, this is our Black History Month feature here at Sickle Cell 101. So we're just glad that Billy has given us the time to have this conversation, and even super excited for those of you that joined our giveaway a few weeks ago for Billy Garrett's book, Ode to the Warrior. You guys make sure you check your DMs because those books have already been sent out. So congrats to all the winners. And part of our conversation today, we're going to kind of talk a little bit about the book. I'll always say, if you already haven't checked out Billy Garrett's book, go to Amazon and check out that book. And I know there's going to be a lot we're going to talk about today. And we're going to put that link in the comments as well for you all. But that's really what we're going to talk about today. Get to learn about Billy Garrett's inspirational career journey, also about his book, like I shared. And so, Billy, I'm just going to dive straight into this conversation. And I didn't tell you this, but before we start, I have some fun icebreaker questions, and I think you stole some of them earlier. So um, we're going to incorporate these throughout. I know you guys, please ask all your questions as well. But Billy, I have some 3 questions for you to think about. And
Stephen, before you go, Billy, do you mind? We can see like maybe half your face on IG. Oh, there we go. There you are.
We're good to go. Yeah.
okay,
Sorry about that.
Yeah,
you
that
good?
looks, yeah, that looks better.
Is that better?
Awesome.
Perfect.
Sorry
Yep.
about that.
Okay. So my 3 questions, this or that, Billy. First one. So you're on a game on the road. Are you reading a book or are you listening to music?
I'm listening to music. I'm listening to
Music.
music for sure.
Why
Yeah,
is
yeah,
that? Why
yeah.
is that? Just out of curiosity.
Um, cause on the court, I like to listen to music like all the way up until right before we come out. So if I'm
Okay.
on the court warming up, I'll have headphones in.
Okay.
I wish I could say both because like if I'm on the bus, I'm reading a book usually, or if I'm in a hotel, like right before we leave, I'm reading a book. But if I gotta pick one, I'm going with music every time.
You kind of said 2 in 1, but it's okay. I'll take
Yeah,
that. All
yeah,
right.
that's my bad. That's my bad.
I'll just mess with you. All right, second question for you. So social media is kind of the day and age, right? I am
Hmm.
so old school. I'm struggling. So if you have to pick between Instagram and TikTok, what would you go for?
Instagram. Easy. I don't even have TikTok, man. And I probably
Okay.
should like try to get into that, but it's a lot. It's a lot of prep for that, man. I haven't started. This
I
is
know. So you and I on the same boat. Cass is our tech genius. So they just got me on TikTok recently. So
Yeah.
I'm learning. I'm learning. All right. The last question, which I think is going to really help us segue into our conversation today, is let's talk about pizza. And
mm,
I know you're from
uh,
Chicago. So if you have to pick New York pizza or Chicago pizza, what would you pick?
Chicago every time. I'm gonna be honest, and I love New York. New York might have some of the most overrated pizza in the country, bro. I'm gonna just be honest with
Oh,
you. It's
okay.
it's it's solid. It's solid, and I love how New York is like raw for the pizza. But in terms of just quality,
Mhm.
I'm going deep dish Chicago pizza every time. Every time.
Okay, okay. Our New Yorkers, y'all gotta give Billy some nice spots in New York because I think we might have to scoop him back on our side over there. But thank you for having that. This is not done. I'm gonna have a lot more, but I want to turn over to Cass
So,
to dive into our conversation. Cass, over to you.
Yeah. So first of all, Billy, if you don't mind introducing yourself for people who may not know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself. This crowd is a sickle cell crowd, so we want to hear the details, especially surrounding, how your journey was or how life was growing up with sickle cell. So if you don't, as much as you feel comfortable with sharing, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
yeah, so I'm Billy Garrett. Was born in Chicago, Illinois. Was born with sickle cell SC. Um, as all sickle cell warriors know, the challenges that presents. Was no different, crisis every other week, couple of months growing up. Um, was born into a basketball family, so like that kind of was just a way of life for everybody in my family. Like my dad's a college basketball coach. My grandfather was a professional player, the first player to play in the first black person to play in the Big Ten. So it's like I was kind of born into it. So with that being said, you can kind of obviously see the challenges that having sickle cell would present to, someone that aspires to be an athlete. So I dealt with that a lot coming up, like a lot of the trials that presented, whether it be, hospital visits and just the physical obstacles that presented. So, over time got stronger, and I'm sure we'll dive into it, but over time, my body got stronger, dealt with the ups and downs of having sickle cell and developed as an athlete, and then, found my way to the NBA. Was blessed with that opportunity to play in the NBA with sickle cell. Being the first person to ever do that is humbling, but also, it's an example for other sickle cell warriors, which is kind of why I wrote the book, Ode to the Warrior, in the first place. Just to kind of share my story with other sickle cell warriors. And I'm excited with the successes that's had so far and the connection I've been able to make with other warriors. Um, I won't. Well, we'll get into some more of the details, but overall, that's just kind of, who I am, my journey up until this point.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I know you kind of talked about kind of your sickle cell journey briefly, so I want to dive a little bit more into it, right? And you talk about
Yeah.
your parents as well. So one of the things that of course, for people in our sickle cell community, I hear people talk about is the moment where their parents have the sickle cell talk with them, right? So can you share with us if you're able to, like, was there kind of a moment where you felt like your parents maybe kind of had that official talk about sickle cell and how that could potentially impact your life, or was it something that you just had to discover on your own?
And especially being basketball family, right?
Yeah.
Like very sports related. So I can't
Mhm.
even imagine how they wrap their head around all of that.
Man, you know what? I first I got to credit my mom with like giving me the knowledge of the disease, like the textbook knowledge of it, of everything that I was dealing with. She did a great job of, you know, allowing me to understand, well, presenting the information to me so that I could understand exactly what it was that I was dealing with the best I could as a kid. You know what I mean? Like you can take in all that information, but you're still a child. So you don't necessarily understand the magnitude of what it is that you're dealing with, right? Until you're a little bit older. But something I said in a few interviews that I've done about having sickle cell is that my parents did a great job of explaining to me like the severity of the disease without like placing fear in me and allowing me to use like sickle cell as a crutch, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, it was good balance between my mom and my dad because my dad was more of like when he got the information, he was like more on the line of, all right, he can't do this, he's not supposed to be doing that. Like, how do you know? He was a little bit more stubborn, which
Mm.
might not be the safest way to play it, but it helped me. Because as a
Yeah.
kid, like I knew I had sickle cell, but I wasn't afraid of anything. Like I was willing to test my limits. And I think that was kind of the beginning of like me being able to succeed as an athlete because though I had the information, I was kind of stubborn as a kid. So any crisis that I ran, if I had a crisis or if I found myself feeling terrible, particularly after like practice or after a game, after any sort of strenuous activity, um, I would, go through that pain and then I'll be right back at it as soon as I was healthy again. I never looked at it as like, oh, I can't do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, to answer your question, like my mom did a great job of teaching me, exactly what it was that I was dealing with early, but still kind of instilled that confidence in me to pursue whatever it was that I, wanted to.
No, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Was it ever brought up where, and this is just me out of curiosity, did they kind of know about their genotype as well, or was that more kind of through the education after you were born as well?
That was more through the education
Gotcha.
after I was born, because they didn't know much about it at all
I see.
until they didn't even know they were trait carriers,
Hmm.
Mm.
um, until I was born. So my mom like did a crash course in sickle cell once I was born and figured out as much as she could learn about it, and then kind of translated that information to me. Um, and it would transfer that information to me, and then I kind of went from there as a kid, and then learned more about it as I got older. But
Yep.
I gotta credit her. I gotta credit her with that.
Yeah, we gotta give credit, shout out to all the sickle cell warrior moms out there because they always make the magic happen. So awesome, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot like my mom too. And we were talking a little bit earlier. Billy and I both have an Iowa connection there. I was born and raised in Iowa, and Billy, your father was a coach of the University of Iowa, the same medical center that I got diagnosed as the first child in Iowa with sickle cell disease. So, a little fun fact for the audience, a little context when he said he, stayed in Iowa City. I was like, um,
Shout out Iowa City, man. Shout out to Iowa City. I had a great time out there. All my friends back there. Shout out
go
to you guys
Hawkeyes.
for
Me
sure.
too. Me too. Funny enough. Yeah, people really like staying there. So I want to get a little bit more into the book and the why. You decided to share your story. I think we know within the community, sickle cell is very stigmatized and for no good reason, right? There really isn't a good reason to have any negative connotations because it is just like another condition, just like anything else. And so, but for some reason in the community, we deal with those stigmas and it makes it sometimes hard for people to share their stories, especially when it comes to sports. I feel like, a lot of athletes try to even conceal that they have sickle cell trait. So it's very bold and courageous of you to share that, not only that your diagnosis, but, bring us along on the journey. And so, tell us a little bit more about the inspiration for writing this and sharing your journey in your book.
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, there's a big stigma behind sickle cell, which I don't quite understand either. Um, it's one of the biggest health and racial disparities in modern medicine. So,
Yeah.
knowing that and knowing my journey, I felt that writing a book and sharing my story was like the least that I could do for the sickle cell community. Because I look at it as like I was blessed with the opportunity to have sickle cell and do something that no one with sickle cell has done before, right? So being that I was blessed with that opportunity, um, I felt the need to share that experience and share that journey, just in hopes of kind of, giving a little bit of inspiration to somebody if I could.
Yeah.
Because I was that athlete that was trying to hide it, like especially in college. My freshman, sophomore year in college, when I didn't necessarily understand like the bigger vision behind, what I was doing and what I was capable of. Like my sole purpose was to succeed as an athlete and get as far as I could with sport. Um, but in doing that and dealing with the disease and just existing within the community and understanding that everybody that has sickle cell is kind of dealing with a similar journey. I felt the need to just kind of share that game that I picked up along the way of having sickle cell, whether and not to say, it has to be agreed with or tell people how to live their lives after. So I just felt the need to share the story, you know what I mean, and
Yeah.
bring more awareness to the disease. But more so just bring some support within the sickle cell community and share, what I've been dealing with.
That's
Yeah.
amazing, honestly. It really is, the confidence that you have to openly talk about and share is really admirable because I know it's not the easiest thing to do. So just wanted to share that with you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I want to even piggyback off of that, right? And to your point, to both of you's point, you both know more than I can only learn from your experience of living with sickle cell. But I know, speaking of stigma around sickle cell, it comes in so many different forms, right? And I shared earlier, reading through the book, one of the things that you said, you guys Iowa connection, you talk about, doctors will tell you that, hey, no more basketball. Or even, when you're born, this was some of the conversations, and that conversation happens all too quite often, right? For a lot of healthcare providers, unfortunately, that is how some of us are educated to talk to parents of children who were just born with sickle cell disease. So I'm just curious if you don't mind diving a little bit more into that. Like, how were you able to push past all of those? I call them the naysayers, right? We had an audience question. Someone said, how did you go through all the sports in spite of all of these different things, and even your personal life too? So how were you able to kind of break some of those stigmas and push through to make it all the way to the top?
Yeah, man. Honestly, I'll say in terms of the healthcare providers, um, I wouldn't necessarily look at them as naysayers because they're on our side. Like they're just trying
Mm-hmm.
to keep us healthy and do the
Mm-hmm.
best that they can from the perspective that they have.
Yep.
um of treating someone with sickle cell. Again, they don't deal with sickle cell, so that's another reason why I wanted to write the book, to kind of get a perspective from someone's in who actually has the disease
Mm-hmm.
and has been able to succeed in sport despite having the disease, because a lot of the information that we get is from the vantage point of the healthcare provider. And though it's right in the healthiest way and the safe, their primary thing is safety, right? Which is the right way to go.
Mm-hmm.
My success in sports, if I'm being completely honest, like I had to like test some limits and put myself in some risky situations from a health standpoint in order to succeed. I got to call it what it is, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
um, I wouldn't necessarily recommend like tell someone to approach it like that, but like my courage in that sense to kind of test my limits, um, is kind of what allowed me to succeed in terms of being a basketball player with sickle cell. Um, and not to say it wasn't met with a lot of pushback in terms of like being able to convince doctors to allow me to play, dealing with all the
Yeah.
crisis, being in the hospital for long periods of time. But like as I got older and my love for the game began to develop, that was like a trade that I was willing to make. You know what I mean? And I was willing to put my health on the line in a sense. I don't want that to sound too dramatic, but I was willing to push it and go through the ups and the downs just because I love the game so much. Um, and that was just something I was willing to deal with. But I say all that to say, like, I have great doctors, and they've always had my best interest at heart. And my own stubbornness was a gift and a curse because like allowed me to succeed in sports, but also on the back end, I dealt with some of the, some of the backlash of playing sports with sickle cell, and then also dealt with some of the health issues that came with that.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
thank you. Go ahead, Cass.
And I just really want to say that really resonates with me. So I'm not a sports girl. I told y'all before the call, like if I embarrass myself about sports, I'm like the yay sports type of girl. Anyway, but what really resonates with me is the fact that you said you're willing to kind of put this, you're passionate, so passionate about it that you're willing to try it out. And that's how I feel about traveling and have my travels. Like I just, in order for me to feel alive, in order for me to enjoy this life that I'm in right now, despite having sickle cell, that's something I have to do to feel fulfilled. And I
100%.
do recognize that there are risks involved and there's, all these safeguards that need to be considered, but I am willing to risk my health in a way. And I don't want this to sound reckless in any way, shape, or form,
Exactly.
just
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
same
For sure.
way, the same sentiment you're saying, right? But um, I think it really is more so making it work for you and making it work for us. And so, doctors will often, a lot of people with sickle cell will say, oh, a doctor said I can't go on a plane. A doctor said I can't travel here. I can't do that. It's never a no for me. It's a how do we make this happen for me? And so I feel when you were talking about that, it just sounded so much about like how I feel. If you have a passion, the passion that seems out of reach for someone living with sickle cell, and I put that in air quotes, I think it's really your charge to really examine how you can still achieve it within the boundaries and within the constraints and to do it safely. So I just wanted to stop and say thank you for saying that because I don't think that really gets talked about, right? And we talk about what we're supposed to do as patients to stay safe and that's great, but a lot of us have dreams that kind of may go outside of that. So how do we make that work for us?
Yeah, for sure. And to add to what you're saying there, I think as you make it work for yourself, not only do you kind of, well, for me, I felt that I got stronger in a sense and I could handle
Mm,
more.
yeah,
But then also on top of that, you kind of see what works for you and what doesn't work. You know what I mean? And that's not to say that like I flew with an oxygen tank until I was like 15, 16 years old. Like, you know what I mean? Like stuff like that, trying to
yeah,
figure it out. And then over time, at least my body felt like it started to adapt. And I got stronger,
yeah.
but like you don't figure those things out unless you're willing to
You're
kind of
in
step
it.
out there a little bit, you know what I'm saying? And like dip your toe in the
Mhm.
water in a sense and like kind of see what you can handle and what you can't handle. And that can be a scary thing, especially for a lot of people that have sickle cell because of what you hear about it and the information that you get from doctors. And no,
Yeah.
both ways are okay. Like no way is
Mhm.
right or wrong. But just for me personally, like you said, like I had a passion for playing. I mean, I have a passion for playing.
Yeah.
So like I was willing to test those things, and then on top of that, like you add like the ignorance of being young. And when I was a kid going through this, I was like, man, I was willing to do whatever, risk it all for it.
Me too.
You know what I mean? It's like I
Yeah.
don't care, whatever. I'm gonna have a crisis. I'll be out the hospital in 3, 4 days. I'll be good to go. Like we'll be back.
Yeah.
Um,
I call it innocent risk taking. You just take the risk because
Exactly.
you're innocent
Exactly.
about it.
Innocent
Just
risk
go for
taking,
it.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That in itself kind of put me on the path to be where I am now. But as you said, I won't keep hammering home the same issue, but it's just, you're right in
Yeah.
the sense of you got to be willing to kind of test it a little bit and see where you see how far you could take it.
Yeah, I got to tell you both. We're getting some great comments and insights, and
I was
please
gonna say
keep
the
them
same thing.
coming. Someone
Yeah.
was just talking about pushing the boundaries safely helps, like what you guys are talking about with adaptability and also for their mental health, which I know we're going to talk about soon too. So it's kind of nice seeing kind of what you guys talking about, people also reflecting on that. But go ahead, Cass.
I just wanted to say there's some questions coming in and I'll just let the audience know we're gonna maybe interject with a couple questions if you don't mind, Billy,
Yeah,
before
for
we,
sure.
continue on with ours. Um, Does have you ever experienced, and actually this actually segues into the next part of this. You did talk a little bit about you know, pushing, you know, these boundaries, right? And it doesn't always come out perfect, right? So, you know, you do end up sick. When I travel, I end up in a hospital in a foreign country. Um, so, um, you know, have you ever experienced pain crisis during the game? And if so, how do you handle that? Like when you are pushing the boundaries and sickle cell pushes back, what do you do?
So yeah, there's one moment in particular which like I referenced in the book. Um, this is my freshman year of college, and you know, being a freshman in college, you're still adapting to like the lifestyle of living in college, and then being an athlete. Um, Being an athlete, you're trying to adapt to like the physical day-to-day schedule of being playing basketball. So this is just like toward the end of the season, and I've been through a few situations like this, but this is one that kind of sticks out of my mind 'cause it's a little bit more serious than the rest. But end of the season's going pretty well for me. And I start to feel a little bit of pain in my knee. And we have a flight out to New Jersey, actually. We're going to see, we got a flight to New Jersey later that day. So what we would do is we would practice in the morning. We would fly out to the city we were playing in. The next day would be the next night. We would get there, get to the hotel, play the next day. So we're practicing. I feel like the pain in my knee. And I'm telling myself it's just a little bit of soreness toward the back end of the season. And
Yeah.
people that have experienced crisis, like once you get like to a certain level of pain and you know that feeling, you like, oh yeah, this is crisis, like it's here.
Yeah.
So we get to the point where we're driving to the airport and I'm like almost in a crisis, but I'm telling myself like good. And this is back, I'm young again, you know what I mean? It's kind of, talk about that ignorance that you have when you're young. I'm thinking I'll just, take a Tylenol, sleep it off on the plane. I'm thinking I'll take a Tylenol, sleep it off on the plane, like going into the crisis, which makes no sense. But whatever. So we get to the plane, we take off, and the crisis goes from like a 5 to like a 9, like in the span of
Mm.
like 30 minutes to an hour. So the flight wasn't that long. We didn't have to emergency land the plane or anything, but as soon as we touched down, um, got off and it was like a clearport situation. So they had like a car come and get me. And then we just straight off the plane drove to a hospital. And then that ended up being one of the most serious crises I've had in my life because we went to a hospital that
Wow.
didn't have a sickle cell clinic.
Yeah.
So they didn't necessarily know how to treat me. They gave me I want to say Dilaudid or something. Like usually when I
Mm-hmm.
was a kid, I get like morphine for like pain
Mm-hmm.
crisis. They
Mm-hmm.
gave me, I think it was Dilaudid, I can't remember. Whatever it was way too strong. So um, you know, sent my body kind of into shock, started vomiting, kind of lost consciousness. Like that whole situation happened, then had to go to another hospital. Ended up being there for like a week. But I say that to say that's been like one of the most extreme cases. Um, and when that happened, I still kind of had the same attitude where I was like pretty present with it. I sat with it, experienced it, and then allowed my body to kind of slowly build back up. But like it never like instilled fear in me in a sense to where I didn't go back to testing my limits. I just kind of picked up, where I messed up there in that situation, not
Yeah.
being honest about the crisis I was having to start, and then took that information with me and made sure it never happened again. But I'm sorry, that was kind of a long-winded way to answer your question, but like that's an example of a time when I've been, you know, in a crisis mid-season, mid-game in a sense, and had to deal
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew that question was going to come up a lot. Like even before the episode, I know people had sent that same question about, as a professional athlete and going through also living with sickle. So I know pain is going to be that biggest factor. So I think I appreciate you sharing that story because I get it. Everybody's story is different, but also the kind of like you talked about, certain points you learn and you understand your body, and you kind of sometimes hey, which ones am I going to be able to take care of myself versus which ones do I need to call for extra help? I think it's so important. So thank you for sharing that. And again, Billy kind of give us a teaser again about his book. So for those of you listening in today, if you already haven't checked out the book, Ode to the Warrior, straight on Amazon, you can get that book. And For those that already got those free copies, congrats. Maybe we might give another surprise one day. You never know. But please go on Amazon and check out this book. Trust me, guys. And I want to kind of switch gears a little bit. Let's get back to some fun conversation. So you are our Black History Month feature,
Wow.
but but I have there's someone else that we want to celebrate alongside you that I know you're going to be very proud of. So I'm going to read this slide quote from the book. So one of the comments you said was, "When you carry the last name that I do, sports being out of the question is actually what's out of the question." I love that quote so much. That's so funny. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna read you like 3 or 4 highlights, and I'll let you guess who you think I'm talking about that we want to also honor and celebrate you along with that person for
Okay.
Black History Month. So first one, you might have said this earlier. This person broke the Big Ten color barrier, became the first African American to play basketball in that conference. The same person was Indiana's Mr. Basketball in 1947. He's also the only person in Indiana to win the state title as a coach and as a player. And the last one for you, you better get this right, Billy. This person was drafted to the Celtics, but honorable cause. They actually served in the military, and that's why they were not able to go. But they came back and played professionally too, which I won't say all of that. So, Billy, you're not the only
Mhm.
person we're going to celebrate today for Black History Month. So tell me, who do you think we're talking about next? And if you do so, tell us more about this person and why you're so proud of this person.
Yeah, for sure, man. That is without a doubt, that is my grandfather.
Okay.
The OG Billy Garrett.
Wow.
Uh yeah, man. He man, pioneered, like, and to share that last name kind of gives me a lot of pride just because I know what he's dealt with. I'm dealing with sickle cell, which is, a thing in itself. But when he was doing this thing, he was dealing with, like, that's when, racial tensions were their highest,
Mm.
you know what I mean, in America. So that's a whole
Yeah.
nother beast in itself. He handled that, courageously. I never got them. He died when he passed away when my dad was like probably 9 or 10 years old. He was
Yeah.
young. So I never got to, meet him or talk to him. But um, it brings pride to me just knowing, I come from that lineage, that bloodline. And I'm proud to even be able to be in a conversation, especially like Black History Month. Like that's,
Mm-hmm.
I can't even really put that into perspective for me. You know what I mean? Because I'm living it every day. So it's not really doesn't seem like that big of a thing to me. But when I think about him, it's like, oh wow, he was really, really influential in breaking a color barrier in a conference in the state of Indiana. Like that. You know what I mean? So like, um, it's an honor, man. It's an honor. Sure.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I think it's so important that we share these stories and, celebrate Black history too. So for me, like reading the story about him in the book, and of course, you got a lot of inspiration, like you talked about. So again, happy Black History Month to everybody out there. But I think this was so important, and thank you for even sharing more about his story as well.
And Billy Garrett is Black history. He is the very first NBA player with sickle cell disease. Like, come on. And I remember when I first came across your story, and we posted about it on Sickle Cell 101, and like just the the comments from the community, everyone's like, wow, we made it to the NBA. And I was like, wow, this is such a huge deal. We know, I think there's a couple players in the NFL who had sickle cell, but NBA is just a whole nother game, and it's just so huge for us. So just want to share how much of a big deal this is for us. The very first black person with sickle cell disease in the NBA. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. So
Appreciate that. Thank you.
and I have a lot of comments here. Living the dream. People are saying your grandpa would be proud of you. You're such an inspiration. So I really hope that you carry that with you, and you know that you really are an inspiration, and your history in the making, especially within the Black community and the sickle cell community.
I appreciate that. And a lot of times, like I said, like when you're in it, you're in the midst of it, right? It's just kind of, especially in the world of sports, like you don't. never
Yeah.
you never really take a chance to like sit down and realize, what's going on around you. Um, because like that same drive is you trying to, get to the next thing, accomplish the next thing. So I appreciate you guys, man. I appreciate you guys having
Yeah.
me on. And
Yeah.
Y-
There's a
I appreciate
mother
the
who
support.
says, yeah, there's a mother who says, my son is a basketball player with sickle cell disease. I think that is, like you said, you're really inspiring a lot of people. So I think sometimes we all just have to take a step back and just reflect and, and enjoy these moments. So thank you. Thank you again. Cass, go ahead.
Yeah, so just to talk a little bit more about just your NBA career and sickle cell on the road, there's a lot of traveling, there's a lot of unpredictability with sickle cell, as you know. And I'm sure, experiences like with going to the ER and all of that, and you're in a place that where doctors, how you described it, how, doctors don't know how to treat sickle cell. How can sickle cell warriors advocate for themselves, knowing that, there are these challenges that exist? How have you been able to navigate that?
Um, tr Trial and error, to be honest. Like as a kid, like I said, I would have to travel with oxygen, on flights.
Yeah.
I did that all the way up until I was in college, man. And I had great teammates and great trainers that didn't look at me any differently. They just kind of knew what I was dealing with.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
and then like making sure that my life outside of basketball didn't present anything that would, cause crisis or make crisis worse. Whether that be, hydration, eating clean, rest, low, keeping my stress levels low. I did the best I could outside of the game to make sure that I was respecting my body and allowing it to
Hmm.
to recover. And then also, that's not to say that it prevented all crisis. Like my first 2 years of college, I was going through probably two or three crises during the season, um,
Wow.
or during the year, and
Yeah.
you know, like it just each one I figured out, what caused it, what started it. And then my body just got stronger. It was as simple as that. It was no like special formula or anything like that.
Yeah.
I just dealt with I just kind of rolled with the punches of having the disease. And um the most important thing was like I never allowed it to discourage me. I want me to stop. Like that never even crossed my mind. Like, you know what I mean? Just um we dealt with it, and that's not to say it didn't present any issues. Like we dealt with it as it happened, recovered, and then got back to it and changed the routine if necessary.
No, that's amazing to hear because it's very easy. And I don't think anybody would blame anybody for somebody with sickle cell, like, just not moving forward because it's
Not
such
at
a
all.
debilitating disease. And so, for you to, kind of just continue on and keep pushing forward, it's just so amazing to hear. Um, to kind of get into a little bit about your lifestyle, what did your diet look like? What did kind of like a day-to-day look like for you?
Yeah. So that's the thing that I've altered like the most. And I would say I've seen like the best results. I had a nutritionist. I was a pro when this happened. So this is probably like a year or two after I'm out of college.
Yeah.
Um, and he talked to me from like a standpoint of like oxygenating my body through food, which like I knew, but I didn't necessarily understand like the detail of it.
Mhm.
So I went through different phases. Like I'm a type of guy where if I think something might work, I'll try anything. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yeah.
I went vegetarian for a year, then started to incorporate like fish and meat again. Um, but those are all kind of just details in a sense, but like high leafy vegetable intake. Like I'll eat. That's kind of how I eat. My parents are well, not my, they won't make fun of me, but they'll say things like I eat like a rabbit or something. Like they'll say like little stuff like that. But that's kind of an example of how I operate because it made me a better athlete too. Slim me
Yeah.
down. Like when I was in college, I ain't really had the dietary knowledge that I do now. Um, but I'll say like now it's just a gallon of water a day. And that's extreme,
Wow.
but like I'm an extremist in like the sense of these things, and like I put my body
Yeah,
through
yeah,
extreme things. So it's like my water sitting right there actually, but I'll go like a gallon of water a day. Um, and again, this is not like law. This is just how I approach it. And then a lot of salads, a lot of fruits, a lot of vegetables, and then keep it there. But my diet is just mainly is just whole foods. Like, and I keep it simple and I eat extremely clean, and it's made all the difference for me. But that's easier said than done. Like as sickle cell warriors, also we got to look at our habits and be honest about them. Like you know what I mean. So, um, if it's something that you can do to help your situation as far as having the disease, like it's your responsibility to do that. So we got to look at ourselves. We got to hold ourselves accountable. Make sure we're eating clean. Make sure we're getting the hydration. Make sure we're getting the rest. Make sure we got the right people around us. You know what I mean? Like less
yeah.
stress. All that stuff matters. Like it goes under the radar, but in my experience, like the little things have made the biggest impact. Just because I've been consistent with them and making sure I keep a healthy space around
I like
You
that.
said you're an extremist, and I feel like
me.
we all almost have to be an extremist with sickle cell, just with what we're dealing with, right?
Yeah,
So
you're
I thought
dealing with
that
an
was
extreme
really
condition.
interesting. Even outside of sports, sickle cell is such an extreme disorder that we kind
Sure.
of have to equally balance that out with, uh, treating ourselves really well and, eating the right things and, just to kind of alleviate that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You got to
And
take extreme measures. I'm sorry not to cut you off, but yeah, you got to take extreme measures for sure.
yeah, no, you said something about, the little things, right? Making a big difference. And I love the conversation around food and how so important it is for sickle cell warriors too. But one thing you said in there was people around you and all of these different things too. So I want to touch on one specific chapter. I'll tell you in the book, this is my
Hmm.
favorite chapter, is that turning point chapter, right? So you talk a lot about mental health, right? And you talk a lot about therapy and all of those different things too. So again, I'm a quotes type of guy, so I write this stuff down. So I remember one statement in there you said, this start this was the start of my journey to myself. And then you talk about that was started with you for reading, right? And so for me,
Hmm.
one of the things I strongly believe, like, I know these days I'm a big advocate for mental wellness. And a lot of these days, everybody thinks therapy, mental health, and most people are thinking about a professional. You got to go see and all of these things. But I think it's so important. I always say this, like, it's really whatever you see fit that you need. And I love that you talked about it was you started by reading, right? And of course, we highly encourage therapy. And for some people, is maybe eating healthy. For some people, it's exercise. For some people, is finding a passion or whatever that might be. So I want you to touch a little bit more on that, right? Kind of through your journey, especially like talking about in the chapter how a lot of these different things in terms of mental health that even impact you as an athlete, and also for your sickle cell journey, and also maybe some advice and recommendations you might have for the warriors listening in today.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think that's I won't say underrated, but it's not talked about enough within the sickle cell community is like the psychological impact that the disease has on
Mm,
people.
Yeah.
It's a part in the book where like I talk about, having sickle cell and for example, you're teaching a kid like from a young age, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. Be careful with this, stay away from this. And like the tone, well, I would say like usually it comes from like a doctor or your parents, right? And it's safety first, but it's a limit. It's like nailing home like a limited mindset in a sense, because now you feel like you can't go out and live your life. Um, so like I say that, man, because I don't think like mental health gets talked enough, gets talked about enough. I think it gets swept under the rug.
mhm.
And that was a major component of the book. Like I wanted it to be able to kind of touch on that aspect. And as you mentioned, like a lot of mental health is like getting back home to yourself. Like we live in
Mm,
like a dominant society, right? That can kind of pull us away from those things. If we're not careful and if we don't have a good grasp on who we are and what our core moral values are. So I think especially with that's with anybody, but especially with having sickle cell and dealing with such a traumatic disease, I think it's important that we kind of dive inward and kind of face that and kind of deal with the fear of having the disease. And then it'll kind of allow us to treat ourselves better, have a better understanding of what we're doing. And as we treat ourselves better, like we clean up our environment, clean up how we eat, we clean up who we're around, just because we kind of care more about ourselves, and spend more time with ourselves and respect ourselves more. So I think that's like vitally important for just people walking the earth right now. Because like I said, the world we live in is a super dominant society that puts value on a lot of things outside of ourselves, man. And it's not
Yeah.
talked about enough, in my opinion. So I
Mhm.
think the best way for me to kind of help that cause is to one, start with myself first, do all the work I can, to serve the world better, and then kind of share my experience, because that's what I think we're all here for. So anybody reading a book with sickle cell, but even people reading a book without sickle cell, I think, I'm hoping that it can have that effect and allow you to kind of look at the world from another perspective and in turn kind of, treat yourself better.
Yeah, you couldn't have said any better. I think, like you said, that's why I think this book is for everybody. Like there's
Yeah,
so much in there.
sure.
Like I said, I'm unapologetic about mental health. There's even more to that. So I really, really encourage everybody out there. I think there's a lot that we all can really benefit from reading this book. So thank you. I really appreciate you even highlighting that in the book, especially.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We have a lot of great comments coming in here and a lot of great questions. I wanted to follow up with what recommendations you have for, somebody who lives with sickle cell, another sickle cell warrior who might want to pursue a career that might be physically demanding um, on their body like you do. And I guess as a follow-up to that, how did the MBA, I guess, react or accommodate or you know, how do they feel about you having sickle cell?
Yeah. So, first question, like I'll say, with someone who wants to pursue like a career or something that's
Mhm.
physically demanding and has sickle cell, um, I'm gonna be honest, like my first advice would just be to like, strap in and buckle down. Like it's not gonna be an easy process, like by any stretch. You got to understand what you get yourself into, and you got to be willing to deal with uh everything that comes with it, right? Because it's gonna be times where it gets ugly. It's gonna be times where people gonna tell you shouldn't be doing it. It's gonna be times where um you feel terrible like while you're doing it, right? Like I just
Mhm.
gotta call it what it is. But I mean, it is possible, right? And my thing is the best way to it. And I won't even put a timeline. I say the fastest way to it because it's everybody's process is different. But be able to find that balance between pushing your limits and not putting yourself in danger, like in extreme danger, right? Like at the end of the day, we are dealing with a health condition that can be fatal. Like let's just call it what, gotta tell the truth there.
Yeah.
So um find that balance, but just be persistent. Like anything you put your mind to something like for a long enough period of time, like the body is amazing in its ability to adapt to what you're doing. Like I'm a prime example of that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah.
um and that's kind of what the effect that I want my journey to have. Like I like to look at it kind of like the 4 minute mile, like in a sense, like back in don't quote me on this timestamp, but like back in like the 30s and 40s, they thought like nobody in the world could run a mile in under 4 minutes, right? One person does it, and then like you got people all over the country running a mile just because like of the psychological shift that happened in
Yeah.
the world, right? So like for the sickle cell community, as far as doing things that are strenuous, I don't want people to go out there and like recklessly put themselves in harm's way, but I want my experience to kind of have that 4 minute mile effect to where like I'm really no different from anybody on this live, anybody that deals with sickle cell. Like it's just my experience and my upbringing allowed me to approach it from a different perspective. So like for anybody approaching the disease I mean anybody approaching like a career that's kind of strenuous on your body, I would say just one, take extreme care of your body, like in the best way possible. And then go out there and you just got to do it and then deal with the ramifications of any health things that happen and in a responsible way, and then learn from it and go back and try it again. It's just like it's persistence, man. It's like that simple. Um, and then like when playing professional basketball, In college, I dealt with some issues, just because like nobody had played high major sports with the disease before. So,
Yeah.
the NCAA, they want to make sure that they protect, their athletes and themselves.
Yeah.
Because that's a they don't want to be liable. They don't know sickle cell like that. They don't have a great understanding of the disease, so they don't want anything bad to happen to one of their athletes on the floor. So they gave me a hard time about that, but I had great doctors and the trainers at DePaul like allowed me to play. They were on my they watched me like really, really closely when I first got there. I would have a trainer literally follow me around the facility with like a bottle of water, like literally do that.
I need one
And
of
I used to
those.
hate it. I used to, nah, you know what though? I used to hate it because I would be like, his name was Jeff, Uncle Jeff, man. Jeff, if you see this, I love you, Jeff.
Jeff,
Seriously,
get off
like,
my neck with that water, bro.
man, I would be like, yo, Jeff, I'm good. I'm good. He'd be
I
like,
need
no,
a
like he would
Jeff.
just sit there and he wouldn't say anything. And when I'm playing sports, I can be a little snappy. So like I would pop off and let Jeff and be upset. But Jeff was just cool, man. Older guy. He was calm. He was like, bro, I got it. Like, I'm doing my job. Like, cut me a break here. Um, but they gave me a hard time a little bit early, and then they started to trust me. My body got better. Didn't run into as many issues. But then once I got to the G League and the NBA, they didn't have any issues. They didn't have any problem with it at all. And I don't know. The trainers knew about it. But like honestly, they ran me through a few tests, like some heart monitor stuff, like cardio tests, things like that. And then after that, they
Yeah.
just kind of let me do my thing.
Yeah.
It's a different setting. It's a professional setting. So they're like, yo, if you've had no problems up to this point, we here if you need us. But it was more so a performance thing. It's like if you perform and you here, if you not, you gone. So like as
Yeah.
far as the
Yeah.
sickle cell was concerned, they didn't really give me a hard time at all.
Wow.
I had a comment come in earlier, and someone said you inspired them to stop playing safe as a DJ. So, like you said, your
Yeah,
career journey is, of course, is sports, but there's so many different facets, and I love when I see these comments. So you guys keep it coming. I wanted to get a quick break and just kind of come back to my fun questions I started earlier, just as a break as we catch up to these comments. So, Billy, I got three teams for you, right? So the New York Knicks, the Chicago Bulls, and the Indiana Pacers. I know you have connections to all of these teams. Now,
yeah.
the unfortunate thing, I'm actually a New York Knicks fan. The unfortunate thing is all of these three teams, it's been a minute, man, since any of them won the NBA title.
True.
Which of these would you prefer to win first and why?
Man. That's tough because like I'm a Chicagoan, like at my heart, but
Mhm.
like the New York Knicks like changed my life, bro. Like so I don't man. The Pacers, all my family's from Indianapolis,
Okay.
but like they're three. No disrespect to the Pacers. They're three though in that ranking. I would probably go I would go to Knicks first and then the Bulls second.
Hmm.
Just because like when the Knicks are good, like basketball is better. Like when the Knicks are the NBA is just more entertaining and better to watch when the Knicks are really good. So and like Chicago, we've had we've had success fairly recently within the last like I said 96.
Yeah.
That's like 28 years. That's a minute, huh?
Hey, y'all,
Um,
y'all still had Michael Jordan, so
but we had Jordan, yeah. So we got like a rich history. Like the Knicks, I want to see the Knicks do well, man. I want to see them do well. I really do.
okay. So you got Knicks first, the
Yeah,
Bulls
Knicks,
second,
Bulls,
and
Pacers,
you're throwing
100%.
the Pacers. Okay. Everybody at the All-Star game in Indiana right now. Y'all should come get Billy, man. He put y'all number three. Y'all number three.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding. But speaking of those three, right? I want to dive a little bit more into the Knicks. You talked about it. The Knicks really changed your career and pretty much like you said, your life, right? So
yeah,
do you ever take a step back to really look at what you've accomplished? Like it's a big deal, right? Played the highest of the highest, played in Madison Square Garden, as a Knick. Tell me a little bit, like when you take a step back, when you're reflecting of all of these, and like you said earlier, most of the times kind of go, 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 trying to figure out what's next. take a step back and tell us more, like, what is that like now that you've accomplished that? And what were some of those early moments like when the Knicks called you up to play in the NBA officially?
Yeah, so man, like it's hard for me because I'm still in it. Like I'm still a
Mm-hmm.
professional athlete. Like so I
Mm-hmm.
still got things I want to accomplish. Like I still got places I want to go and things I want to do within the game. And as an athlete, man, you don't always take a step back and smell the roses because it's like your sights are on what's ahead, right? So
Yeah.
um writing the book honestly allowed me to take a chance to realize like everything that had gone on. Because when I'm in college, again, you in the middle of the fire. So like you don't really understand like you're trying to break or you're trying to accomplish something that hasn't been done yet. Like I never even looked at it like that. Like it was more and it allowed me to be a better athlete too and stay the course and not get caught up in things. But like I was super present. I am super present with everything that I'm doing. So each time I accomplish something, um, I don't really look at it as a big deal. And also like I think it's like kind of a part of my approach and the confidence that has allowed me to be a good athlete. It's like I'm not surprised when this stuff happens. You know what I mean? Because it's like it's what I'm here to like. It's what I set out to do.
Mm-hmm.
So to answer your question, man, like I not often do I sit and really look at what's going on, right? Because my thing is, all right. I got there. Like, why ain't stay there? Like from an athlete and competitor standpoint, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
all right, I'll play in the league, but like I'm not playing the league right now. I gotta go lock in, right? I gotta go be the best athlete I could be. So man, like I'm grateful. I don't want it to come off as I'm not. Like I'm
Yeah.
extremely grateful for the support and like, you know, what I've been able to experience through this life, like the blessings that I've been able to experience. Like I can't complain about a thing. But again, like I talk about this in the book, it's more so the journey, man. It's like the day-to-day stuff for me. It's like, all right, can I take it further? Like, can I get better? That was nice. We accomplished that. Can we impact more people?
Mm-hmm.
Can we do more? So that's a balance. And then you asked me about like finding out when I got that call. Uh, man, it's a funny story because like it was the end of I was in the G League for 2 years, man, and I had some success there. And in the G League, like it's every man for themselves. Like everybody trying to get a signed an NBA deal. So it's it's the wild wild west in the sense, because like
Yeah.
everybody out there is hungry. So I went out there, made a G League team, and then like after my career with the G League team I was with, I was an all-time leading scorer like for that G League franchise. So in my head, I'm like, man, I know I'm about to get a deal, like I'm about to get a call, and then it didn't come. So end of the season, and the G League season ends before the NBA season. uh, I'm packing up my bags and my bags are at the door. And I put everything. I'm not even really thinking about the sickle cell at this point. It's more so pure like basketball, like competition
Mhm.
mode. I'm like, I'm salty because I'm like, man, I ain't get the call that I thought I was gonna get. Like I didn't. At least my ego was like, I didn't do X, Y, and Z. Like it's no reason I don't got a call. Like I know I could play at that level, at the NBA
Mm-hmm.
level.
Yeah.
Um, so, I packed my bags. Me and my friend used to do a thing where we would just sit, chill, talk about the season. Like before we left, he was my roommate at the time, my teammate. And we order food and we sit there, watch whatever we were watching and chill. So we order at the same time, different places. My phone rings. I'm going to the door, like I'm thinking this Uber Eats, like downstairs. So I look at the call and it's an unknown number that I don't know. I pick it up thinking it's the Uber Eats people and it's like the player personnel guy from the New York Knicks. So like I froze. I'm like why are you like what you calling me for? Like they had just played that night. So I'm thinking maybe he's calling me trying to like, congratulate me on a good year. I had a good year in the G League. Like I'm thinking he's telling me something like that. He thanks me for like my time, professionalism, like just a basic call that you would get at the
Yeah.
end of a season. So I thank him. He's like, yo, your bag's packed. I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to go in the morning. My flight to Chicago is in the morning. Then he goes, all right, unpack your bags. Like, we about to sign you. Like, we need you to we need you to be here for the rest of the year. Um,
Wow.
yeah, he was like, we fought Orlando in the morning. So I'm like, I didn't say anything because I was in shock. Like I thought it was a dude with like a pizza. You know what I'm saying? So he called me and it's him trying to giving me a contract. So I was stuck there. And then he was like, "Yo, you there?" And I thanked him, got off the phone. My roommate looking at me like, "Bro, you good? Like everything all right?"
Wow.
I start crying because like from a basketball standpoint, like you go through a lot. Anybody that plays sports, sickle cell or not, you understand like the
Yeah.
grind of getting to that position and the ups and downs and all that. So when you realize it and then it's like in a dramatic fashion, that's kind of how you handle it. Um, so yeah, that's how that happened. Went, played, and then yeah, man, now I'm just in a place where I'm trying to, you know, get back to a level athletically. Um, and that's kind of where I don't always look at everything that's happened. But it's been a great journey so far. I can't complain.
Yeah, I love it. We just gotta be
Yeah,
present in the moment, present with our phones
gotta
too,
be.
right?
Yeah, for sure.
I would have missed that blocked call, that unknown number. I would have just rejected it right
Yeah,
away.
for
This is
sure,
a
for sure.
reminder. Answer your unknown calls.
Nah, yeah,
That's
answer the
amazing.
phone. Answer the phone. You never know who's on the other line, man.
Yeah. No, I love that story
That's
you shared,
awesome.
man. It's this I was saying, like I said, of course I've read a book, and every time like you talk about how you got to call, and like you said, there's a lot of people that wait for that call. That moment never comes after
Yeah.
going to the G League and all of that stuff too. So for me, is that excitement? Like you just shared a story, and I was like, that excitement. Like I can only imagine what that was like too. So yeah, I'm definitely going to start answering those random calls that come through right now because it
Yeah,
might be
for
my next
sure.
$1 million mo. I don't know. I'm just kidding.
You never
Um,
know, man.
I'm we're almost at the end of our conversation, but I'm keeping track of the comments. Cash, you can go ahead and I'll keep an eye out. So please, you guys keep sending your comments, anything you have for Billy today. And please, again, if you haven't already, check out Ode to the Warrior on Amazon. I highly recommend every single person read this book. I can't tell you guys how inspirational and a lot of gems, man. You've dropped a lot here, but there's a lot more in the book too. So please make sure you check that out.
I mean, y'all, we're talking to him now, and look how insightful this is. So you have to just read the book because it's like this is amazing. This is an amazing conversation. I just wanted to share, like in wrapping up my takeaway from our conversation and your story, and then kind of give people, what they want to say too as well. Um, I see a question there. His genotype, Billy, your genotype is SC, correct?
SC, yes, man.
Okay, all right. Um, so what I've gathered, and I'll give my disclaimer again for those who are just joining us. I'm not a sports person, but just from hearing what you have gone through in your experience, it just sounds like you need an athlete's mentality when dealing with sickle cell. So just taking ourselves out of this and taking I guess just taking our your experience with sickle cell and your experience as an athlete. There's so many intersections and so many ways you can draw strength from both, um, I guess, roles, if you will. And so for me, my takeaway is, having an athlete's mentality, even though, I'm nowhere near an athlete, but having that in order to navigate sickle cell seems to just really resonate with me. And so my question, and I'm not sure if I'm making sense, so please let me know if I can explain a little bit further, but my question to you is how do you gain that athlete's mentality, so that we do have that drive to continue fighting and continue moving forward and continue, not taking no for an answer, like all these things an athlete has to do. We need that for sickle cell. So what does that look like for you? How did you gain that mentality?
Yeah, for sure. I think I think it started with just my upbringing, right? The way that I was
Yeah.
raised. Um, the confidence and the resiliency that my parents kind of instilled in me. And the idea for me, like in an ideal situation, um, I would want like the sickle cell warriors mentality to replace like the athlete's mentality. You know what I mean? Like I wanted to be
Mm,
like a warrior's mentality, not just
okay.
like the
Okay.
mentality of an athlete. And that's kind of what I want people to. That's the hints. I mean, that's a lot of the reason behind the title of the book, like Ode to the
Yeah.
Warriors, like paying
Yeah.
respect to the warrior, like as in the sickle cell warrior and the mentality that we got to have in order to strive with the disease. Because whether we know it or not, like we're all like warriors because we're dealing with
Yeah.
we fighting like literally, you know what I mean? So it's just, for me having a disease, I wasn't necessarily willing to allow it to run my life. And then, I had that set in my mind. It's a matter of perseverance, right? So, whether
Yeah.
you're an athlete or not, like if you got sickle cell, you're trying to be an astronaut, you're trying to be a doctor, or it doesn't matter. It's just like it's the mentality around it. And just it's more so of the ability to deal with the ups and downs of the disease and come back and fight. Like if you can come back from it, then you can't lose in that sense. And that's all an athlete is. It's just an athletics is put on display because you're always in a competitive environment. You know what I mean? And the only way to
Yeah.
survive is to have that mentality because it's a man across from you trying to take your job, just like you trying to take another man's job. You know what I mean? And,
Yeah.
and it's the rawest form of it that we have in society because
Yeah.
it's on display. But I say like that mentality has to be applied. It's just a warrior's mentality more than it is an athlete's mentality in the sense that you just got to be able to fight. And if you're willing to do that, then you can't lose. Like the victory is gonna always come eventually because your perseverance gets rewarded. God, the universe, however you play it, however you see it, like your courage is gonna always get rewarded. Whether it be with the knowledge of the from the situation or whether it be with like the material stuff that you're looking for, or whether it be like your family situation, like when you true to yourself and like you're courageous, that always gets rewarded. So if we can nail home that mentality,
Yeah.
just the sickle cell community, then yeah, we'll be taking a step in the right direction.
Do you
Wow.
guys see why you need to read his book?
I'm I'm out here taking notes, man.
Like, no,
I'm
like
out here taking
the
notes.
way you turned that around, that was amazing. And it
I'm
really
sorry. Yeah,
is. It's a oh my gosh.
I'm,
Like
I'm
that's
out here
how I see
taking
it though.
notes.
Honestly, man, that's just how I see it, guys. Yeah.
I
I
can't
love
say it
it.
enough. I think everybody's got to read a book. I'm telling you. I said in my video before about like you just said, right? It's everybody finding that warrior within, and
Yeah.
I really really believe that. I always say if you want to gather inspiration from anybody, just look at the people who live with sickle cell disease. I strongly believe that, and you come on here and sharing all of these gems. I'm like, man, what are the things that I've limited myself that I couldn't do? And look at people doing amazing things too. So it's just that extra kick, that boost of energy that you've lit a fire in me today. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
as we draw a conclusion to our conversation, I think a lot of the comments is just saying thank you, and
Yeah.
people are just appreciative of everything you're saying. But I want to ask you some of my final questions, fun final questions. I'm not letting you go scot free today. So since you kind of put Indiana at the bottom of your top three list, let's find
Yeah.
a way to redeem Indiana back. So everybody knows NBA All Star Weekend is this weekend, and today is going to be the NBA dunk contest. So Billy, I'm sure you already know this. There are four people in the dunk contest today. One
Yeah.
of them actually is on your old team. So Jacob Toppin is with the Westchester Knicks,
Okay.
which you play.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You got Jacob Toppin. You got Jalen Brown, who everybody knows from the Celtics. You got Jamie Jacquez from Miami and Mac McClung. I think he won it last year. So
Yeah.
which of these four do you think is going to win the contest today? And you better pick right, because if you don't, I'm going to come back and ask you tonight. We're
Man.
like, hey, what's up? What
Okay.
happened?
What happened, right? Um, Does Yaquez have bounce? Is he bounce? I didn't know Yaquez could jump like that. I'm gonna go. I'm going McClung on the repeat.
Okay.
I'm going McClung
Okay.
on the repeat. He seems
Uh,
like a dude that performs in like that type of situation. He got stupid bounce with a close second being Jalen Brown.
okay. So you put in
Close
McClung
second being
one,
Jalen Brown.
Brian number
Yeah,
two. So
yeah,
where are you putting your boy Toppin, man? I was trying to loop alley of
man.
that for you. You put him third or fourth?
I'm gonna be honest, cause he's a Westchester guy. We'll go third, and then
Okay.
we'll go with who was the last? Oh, Jaquez, right? We'll
Yep.
go him fourth. And just because I've seen him play. He's nice, but I don't know anything about like his bounce. Um, I
Okay.
know McClung can fly, and McClung's shorter, so the dunks look a little crazier.
Yeah.
You got to always put that into account. Jalen Brown, super athletic, but I'm gonna go if I had to put money down. If I had to put money down, I'm gonna go McClung.
The clone one. That's fair. Like you said, he's pretty creative too. So I'll check on you, man. I'll check on you. If you don't nail it, I'll come back and come find you. But thank you for that.
Yeah,
Those are kind of my last fun questions for you today.
for
As
sure.
we wrap up, I'm just gonna be and tell you guys I've learned so much today. But one of my biggest kind of takeaways is one, just being present in the moment. And then two, you talked about it a lot today, right? I feel like everything we're going through is a journey, and that process of learning and unlearning is so important, which I know you speak very highly of too. So I couldn't thank you enough, and I like the fact that we talked about a mental health component too. Those are kind of super
Yeah.
important, and some of them might be key takeaways too. So I know our audience learned a lot. So I want to kind of conclude by again saying thank you so much for being on here today. A lot of thank you shout outs coming from the audience. And Cass, I'll turn over to you. I know we got to ask Billy a few questions too before we close out.
Um, I just want to read some of the comments that bring that so that Billy can take away some of this. Please continue to write. Not only is he an NBA player, but author. Like, I mean, at this point, what can't you do, Billy? Like, what?
Appreciate
You're
you.
just, you're awesome. You're
Thank you, man.
awesome.
Appreciate that.
Um, as somebody mentioned that they want to have you at camp to show the guys that they can do it too. And I think one of the things that really resonated with me, there are a lot of things that resonated with me, but um, you spoke about when you see one person do it, that's how you know you can do it in a way.
Yeah,
And
for
that
sure.
can be good. That can be bad in one way, right? Like you can't just be reckless about it. You can't just like kind of, go in naive. But
Hmm.
also, what's powerful about it is that all you need to do is see one person do it. And,
But you
as
know it's
so long
possible.
as you have that, exactly, so long as you have that
Yeah,
drive, that work ethic, and, you're staying safe and all of that, that's all you need. But you just need that visual, right? To see somebody can do it, to know that it's possible. So I think that is very, very special in what you said. So thank
appreciate
you
that.
so much
Thank
for
you.
being here.
And Billy, I got a quick last question for you.
Yeah,
Can you tell us a little bit more, like where can people find you or learn more about your work, and of course all your social media handles and all of that? I want to make sure people are following through, and of course maybe about the book a little bit too. Where can people learn more
yeah,
about that?
for sure, for sure. Book can be found on Amazon. Ode to the Warrior. There's a direct link to the book in my on my Instagram. On Instagram, bgarrett_5. On Twitter, the same. I got to get better with social media though, man. I'm not. I need to get TikTok and all that. I don't have it. I barely use Instagram that much. But
Cass
the
is your
best
go-to
way,
person
If you
yeah,
need
over
help,
there.
yeah,
I can
yeah.
help.
So I might need some help, Cass. Seriously, I gotta get my TikTok going. But yeah, the best way to find me on any social platform is on Instagram. And then reach out, man. Anytime I get warriors that reach out to me on Instagram, I always try to make sure I respond, especially if it's about the book, just because I like to get feedback on it. And then kind of go into detail and talk about something their perspective. They got a different perspective. I just kind of like to talk to people within the community about those types of things. Well, about sickle cell and about the book in itself. So yeah, man, that's the best way to get to me. I appreciate you guys for having me on, man. I want to say for everybody watching, like the has sickle cell or anybody that's tuned in, I appreciate you guys and the support, man. The support it's been amazing. Didn't necessarily expect it, so I'm grateful for that. And I'm happy that I can connect with, you know, just with the whole community, the best I can, and just kind of continue the conversation and push the conversation. So, yeah, man, thank you guys. Like from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate you guys for having me on. I appreciate everybody that's been showing support throughout the community.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm done, man. Mic drop. No more comments. So thank you. Thank you. Cass, anything you got to say?
No, no, I just want to leave with what he's just left there. It's been amazing. And hopefully we can continue to work together to do this work together, and we'll hear more about you.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We'll be in touch soon.
Thank you guys.
All right. Bye bye.